All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for hanging in there for a couple minutes. I know we were just a few minutes past our start time, so thank you for hanging in. I'm going to give everybody just a couple minutes to log in here and get settled. While I'm doing that, I wanted to go over some housekeeping notes. So this webinar is being recorded. You will receive an email probably tomorrow, but if not tomorrow, then at some point over the weekend, with a link to view the recording and some additional resources that our guest speaker, Carol Tice, has so generously shared with us today. And you'll also get those resources today in the chat area, so you can be on the lookout for those. And the webinar is scheduled to be about 30 minutes long today, and we will have some Q&A towards the end of that. So if you have questions, please put them into the Q&A area of the Zoom platform. You can also vote up questions that you have the same question for. So if you see someone else has already asked a question that you are interested in, please feel free to thumb that up, and the most popular questions will rise to the top of the list. And then there is the chat area, so be on the lookout there for links throughout the webinar to any additional resources that Carol mentions. And otherwise, we will go ahead and get started. I'll also be in the chat area, so if anyone has questions, they can go in there. And I just realized I forgot to say, my name is Bree Reynolds. I am the Career Development Manager at FlexJobs, who is hosting this webinar. So I'm just going to introduce you to our guest speaker today, Carol Tice. Carol is amazing. This is not her first webinar with FlexJobs. She's a successful business book author and ghostwriter. She writes articles, case studies, annual reports, white papers, blog posts, and more. So if you are interested in freelance writing, she has got the career history to help you break into this. And her personal mission is to help as many writers as possible to earn well. So she understands this industry. And what she's created for us today is a presentation about how to break into freelance writing in 2020. So in this actual crazy situation that we're in and the current circumstances, she's going to kind of gear it around that as well. So Carol, thank you so much for being here, and take it away.
Hey, thanks for having me. And just for everybody who's curious, we're having some difficulty getting the talking heads going. I wanted to physically say hi to everybody, but we're hoping to figure that out by the time we get to Q&A. So hopefully we'll do the talking head thing then.
Indeed. We'll work on it.
Yeah, we'll get that happening. So before I dive into telling you how to get freelance writing jobs in 2020, I want to do two basic things, which is tell you who the heck I am and why would you want to listen to what I have to say. Like, where do I get the information that I'm going to be putting out to you? So here's a little bit about my story and how I've spent the past 20 years or so and how I know what I know. I am the founder of the Freelance Writers Den Learning and Support Community. And just to not waste anybody's time, who is this training for? Who I think this training will help is if you are someone who's been doing work at home jobs and you're considering moving into freelance writing as one of your things you do at home. If you're God, we swore we were going to unplug that. If you are a recently laid off or furloughed worker considering freelancing, or a newbie freelance writer who is just struggling to earn well, or you're an established freelance writer, but you've seen your work really dry up due to COVID, I think all of those types of people will find some useful information in this presentation. And this is what I'm going to cover. Freelance writing for pay defined, like what is this? And where is the money opportunity in freelance writing? What do you need to do to launch into this career? What do you need to have? And how do you get your very first writing jobs when you're starting from nothing? You don't have any writing samples, you don't have a portfolio. How do you get that together quickly? And then how do you find paid writing jobs? So that's what we're going to be covering. And I often hear from writers who say, well, I want to be a freelance writer, Carol, but I don't think that I can because I don't have a degree in journalism or writing. So heads up, I don't either. I dropped out and after 2 years to be a starving songwriter, and I wasn't studying writing in college anyway, or journalism or communications or any of those majors. So this is not a career that's about credentials. It's about your writing. It's on the page or it's not. Nobody cares if you learned that under a freeway overpass or at Columbia. They want to see what you write and decide if they want to hire you. By about 2009 or 10, I was paying all the bills for a family of 5 with my freelance writing because my husband had developed a seizure disorder and needed to kind of quit his job and focus on healing. And I did that till these lovely people were from when they were about that size to when they were this size. So I've freelanced a long time. I also did 12 years as a staff writer, kind of in between 2 long freelancing stints. I've been freelancing since 2005, most recently. And around 2008, I started a blog because writers getting exploited and ripped off makes me angry. And I wanted people to understand how to earn well. 1,200 posts later, it's still going and still a source of a lot of free information about this career, including that ebook that you can see on the slide, which you can grab for free. And in 2011, I had concluded that some people need more help than just, they can get on the comments of a blog post. They need more focused courses and a chance to ask questions from experts. So I started Freelance Writers Den, and I've basically spent the last 9 years talking to about 14,000 writers inside of our forums. So what I teach isn't like, hey, this worked for me once, is more patterns of success that I have seen with many writers over a long period of time. And I'd say I pull from some of my own experience of freelancing in the last recession, in the 2008, 9, 10 kind of time, which is exactly when I ramped my business up to 6 figures in income as purely from freelance writing, not from my blog or coaching or nothing. So that's who I am and what we're going to do. And so now let's dive into it. So to begin at the very beginning, what is freelance writing? Very simply put, it is writing to please a client for pay. You are writing to serve somebody else's goals or needs or assignment specs, and you get a paycheck out of the deal. It's really important to spend a minute talking about what freelance writing for a living, for a like regular bill paying kind of living, is not, and that is your fiction, poetry, short stories, personal essays, plays, screenplays. It's also not monetizing your personal blog, because in that case, the client is you, basically. You're writing whatever you want to and publishing it yourself and not getting paid by a third party. It's not following your muse, writing if and when you feel like it. It's not about, I have an agenda to get a particular story out there. These are all great types of writing and types you should totally do if you have a passion for doing them. But it is extremely difficult to earn anything like a reliable income in the kind of fiction, creative writing side of writing. So now that you know what it isn't, where is the money in freelance writing? Where is the opportunity? It is in 2 basic buckets. It is in writing for businesses, both informational types of writing, just like their web content, and writing sales kinds of things, writing sales pages, emails that sell a product, brochures. The other big bucket is writing for publications. And there are many more types of publications than most people are familiar with. Most people know consumer magazines they see on the newsstand, but there is a lot of other stuff that you can, a lot of other types of publications that you can earn from. Think of magazines like Costco Connection. So that's considered a custom publication or a company magazine. And then there's trade magazines. I used to write for Nation's Restaurant News, which is written for an audience of restaurant owners. So writing for all types of publications, not your personal thoughts in those publications, but stories where you go interview experts, interview people who are affected by that issue, and weave it into a story. I'm going to say 90% of the paid money is in those two buckets right there. So if that sounds good to you and you feel like you could do some of that kind of writing, the next question is, what do you need to get this off the ground? And I really wanted to address this because I saw a really scammy course out there recently that seemed to indicate you needed all kinds of secret rule books and you needed to know the right tools, and there was lots of, secret handshake rules that if you didn't know them, you'd be in big trouble. And that is all lies. It's really, really simple what you need to launch in this. You need a computer and a good internet connection so that you can interact with clients and send them your writing and get paid. And you need somewhere online that people can find you and that you can put your writing samples so people can see them and decide whether or not to hire you. And if you're starting from scratch and you don't have anywhere like that, I'm a big fan of creating a free LinkedIn profile. You can put clips right into that profile and you can send people there. And it's, should you have a writer website? Yes, that would be awesome, but doing that is a much more complicated and usually costly undertaking. So, if you're trying to just fast track this, honestly, I've seen people go pretty far on just the LinkedIn profile. So I consider those the starting point. Computer, internet, you've got a LinkedIn profile that tells the world you're a writer. And this person you're looking at, by the way, is Alexis, who is one of my coaching students who's doing a guest post for my blog coming up on how she has gotten all of her clients from LinkedIn. So now you've got the basics. So how do you get your first writing jobs? You've never written for pay for another person or business or magazine. How do you do it? There's two common ways that people find those very first clients. And the first one is to look close to home at people you know, friends and family, anybody own a business, starting a business, have a website that maybe could be rewritten, or knows someone they can refer you onto like that. And besides like friends and family, we think about businesses you patronize, charities that you are active in and donate to, and organizations that you may be active in. They might be civic, they might be professional organizations. All of these are places that might need writing help and or that might be a source of referrals or ideas of where you could find people who would let you write something for them, usually initially for free, but in a very defined way. And you're only going to do this like a very small number of times. Don't fall into a pit of feeling like, oh, I need dozens and dozens of samples and I'm just going to keep doing pro bono work for ages. You do not have to do that. You want to grab yourself a few samples, and by then you're pitching for paying work. The other big way besides looking close to home, and for some people that doesn't work because you live in a tiny town, there's nothing going on, you're an expat living abroad, the local marketing angle doesn't work for you. And in that case, we look at things you know. Maybe you used to work in a bank. Maybe you used to work in a doctor's office or for a pharmacist or in a hospital. You know something about finance, about medicine. You may not realize you know it, but you know their lingo. You know kind of what's going on in their industry. You have a vague sense of how these people roll, what their jargon is. And that makes it an easy connection for you to approach, a local business bank or a local maybe investment counselor or a local doctor practice, and maybe you could do something writing for them. The trick when you're a newbie is to find the situation where you can kind of make the case that you would be a good writer for them. And we're going with areas of knowledge that you have, and it could be personal life experience, could be not job experience. Maybe you nursed a friend through cancer and ended up learning way more than you wanted to about oncology. It could be something from your life as well, where you can make that, I know a lot about this because kind of statement. So we do a few of these limited free samples to get the three things you need the most to get going as a freelance writer, which are those samples you can show other people, testimonials, the idea of it is you do it free on the idea that if they are happy, they will give you a testimonial and be willing to refer you if they hear of other people who need a writer. So you show a lot of things in these first pro bono things that you can write on a deadline, that you can write to a client's instructions, that you can take feedback from a client when they say, oh yeah, I like this, but could you change this part, make it this other way, that you can deal with that. Because honestly, there's a lot of writers who can't. They're really wrapped up in their beautiful, precious words, and they really want to write for themselves, and they can't really engage in that interplay of doing it as an assignment for someone else. So this is your chance to road test this career and see how you react to the idea of being told, okay, that was nice, now please write it all again, a different way that I would like better. And if you enjoy that challenge of going, oh, okay, this is like a big jigsaw puzzle I need to figure out, then you're going to do well with this. So once you've got those samples, how do you find paid writing jobs? Let's start with the place that everyone seems to know about and seems to go straight to like it's the only way to find writing clients, the world I call fondly the underworld of freelance writing, which is looking at free online ads like Craigslist ads, going on places like Upwork, and signing up for content mills, places like Textbroker or Writer Access. There's a million of them. And all of these places are kind of a spooky neighborhood. They're kind of not a great place to hang out. There's a lot of scams floating around on them. And the thing is, any mass public platform that you are using to apply for jobs, like every one of those jobs is getting 1,000 applicants. So I probably don't have to do the math for you that your odds of success with that are pretty low. I actually had an Upwork member run some data recently, and what the data showed was that about 90+% of people signed up as freelance writers on Upwork had never earned $1 as a freelance writer on Upwork. So these places hold out the promise that like, oh, we've got all these jobs, but they've also got 10,000 writers signed up. So, and the other side of it is that clients who use these places are really dysfunctional by definition, because no sane company or publication editor places a job listing somewhere where they're going to have to wade through 1,000 responses to find the person they need. That's not what they do. So, you know, everyone on here is in a race to the bottom on price. They just want to know like who could do it for how cheap. I don't really care if the writing's very good. And of course, with the recession happening, the number of these listings that you see floating around are shrinking. So your odds are getting even worse. So it's just not a good neighborhood is what I want people to know. I hear a lot, oh, you know, I thought content mills would be a good place to get started and get some experience. And in many ways, they're not. The rates are so low that it's very demoralizing. I know a lot of people who really like had to rebuild their self-esteem after writing for content mills. And you get a very warped idea of what you should be paid because the rates are not professional rates. So, and the types of writing you're doing are often not like you'll be doing for well-paid clients. So if the underworld isn't a good place to hang out, and those don't work that well, how do working freelance writers do marketing? What are they doing? I actually did a survey on this recently. So this is straight out of data. I'm not just kind of spitballing this, but number one way they did it was their network. And if you think, I don't know anyone, you can start building a network, and LinkedIn is a great place to do that. Once you've got that profile set up, you know, start connecting to people who seem like they either are people or might know people who might need a writer. And a lot of people work their network very hard. Beyond there, it's proactive marketing where you identify and pitch your prospects. And I just threw a few quick search examples up on here. Maybe I want to find tech companies here in Seattle where I'm at. Or maybe I live in Cleveland and I want to write for startups, which is often a good place to break in. Or maybe I, you know, am a PhD or have a master's degree. I've spent a lot of time in academia and I want to think about writing for colleges. Well, where could I pull up a quick list of them? Google is your friend. The list of prospects you need is free and already exists. Don't let anyone talk you into buying a lead list. Those lists are junk. and cost money, and Google will spit out the list you need. Just think about, like, who would you like to try and write for? Do a list of the best or fastest growing or, you know, notable ones in your town, and you can grab a list. So once you have a list of leads and you poke around their site, find a contact name, how are you going to market yourself to them? The answer is many possible ways. And my joke is that the best form of marketing is the kind you're willing to do on a regular basis a lot. So I would tell everyone to just do cold calling, pick up the phone 100 times and just say, do you use freelance writers? But I don't know a lot of people who are willing to actually do that. So there are many different ways to skin the marketing cat, and you need to find one that you can get in a groove with. I want to say the most popular is probably email pitching, or what we call LOIs, letters of introduction, where you look at their site, you notice something they might need help with, and you send them a letter and tell them what you got and what you noticed and do they need help. A lot of people market a lot on social media, not in a hit you over the head overt way, but by building authority, by sharing useful information, by letting people know what they do and how they do it. Some people get together direct mail packages and mail them off. Some do content marketing. You could say that's what I've done with my blog. It has given me a really high profile. And a lot of people do that on Medium or on LinkedIn's blog known as Pulse or places like that. Other people hold classes or do public speaking. They might put together a little e-course that would educate their customer about, some marketing tips for their space and then sell to that list. So lots of ways to go about it. And I obviously can't neglect saying that there's also paid job boards or what I call private job boards. So any job board, like good old FlexJobs, where there is a membership requirement, you have to pay a fee to see the data, or the other direction is like LinkedIn's job board, they pay to list. So both of those really screen out a lot of the junk from the pool. And I'll just say, I know FlexJobs listings very intimately because the Freelance Writers Den has a relationship with FlexJobs where we feature some of their listings. And I just find that they do an amazing job of searching some really obscure places that you're not going to find on your own. And so that's what these better boards kind of do, is they turn up jobs that aren't going to get 1,000 responses and aren't that widely distributed, where you've got a crack at it. And usually they're better quality. So that is kind of the three legs of the triad, I'd say: better boards, proactive marketing, and working your network. And if you need more help, now that you kind of got the basics of how we do this career, my Freelance Writers Den community is actually opening to new members in just a couple weeks. We're only open to the public twice a year for new members. So it's exciting. And I am going to be teaching LinkedIn marketing for freelance writers in July. That's what we're going to do all month of July inside Freelance Writers Den. And now that we can't go to in-person networking, which I used to give people big speeches about the merits of doing, LinkedIn marketing is where it's at in a big way. A lot happening. 500 million people can't be wrong. So that's why I'm going to be emphasizing it. And I'm up to questions.
All right, thank you, Carol. And I did find the mysterious setting that will hopefully allow you to turn on your video. So if you try again,
then I will stop sharing and I will turn on my head. Yay!
Yay! Hello.
Hey, folks.
Hello.
All right, cool.
All right, so we do have lots of questions coming in.
I'll bet.
So
Go
I know
for
it's
it.
so nice to actually see the person talking.
Yeah, I didn't want to be a mysterious.
Yes, agreed.
Voice behind the scenes.
Okay, so let's see. If you want to freelance part-time, should you use your existing LinkedIn profile or create a separate one for just freelance work?
So, fun thing to know about LinkedIn, you can't have two profiles. If they find it, they'll ban you. It's not like Facebook where you can just be a million different people. Yeah, they want one of you on LinkedIn, and they're really strict about it. So you actually have to find a way to integrate, that I am a, transplant center manager and also a freelance writer into one profile. And I have a lot of practice at that with people. I've worked with a lot of people at Tice jobs.
Yes, I bet, because there are a number of questions about kind of how to do that on
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So another question, how many years did it take you to be as successful as you are?
Well, this many to be at this moment. I started freelance writing at the time I was living a stone's throw from MGM studio, where I had formerly worked as a secretary, as a legal secretary. It's my past life. And I entered an essay contest and won it, and I entered another essay contest and won it at two different places. And both of them asked me to keep writing for them. And so it kind of started in a very organic way. And I freelanced until like my husband's TV show was being canceled that he was working on. And then I got worried and got a job. And then in 2005, I got back into freelancing. I want to say I didn't freelance I didn't have to pay all the bills in that first stint. I was sort of the second earner, and I did pretty well at that. And at some point, my husband turned to me and said, I think you can stop typing scripts and just write articles. Like, that seems to be going good. And I was like, you're probably right. But in this one, I was looking to replace a 60K income. When I left in 2005, I want to say it took a year and a half to totally replace that. And then I had the thought that actually, when you work for yourself, your earning potential is unlimited. And I was like, I guess I could probably earn more at this. And then I started to get really serious about like how high can I drive it? And then the recession of 2008 hit, and I just kept going. I just kept with my plan. I was like, yeah, that's a macroeconomic thing. Big thing to know about what's happening now is that is a macroeconomic giant thing that's happening, and you're just like this tiny one person. I heard they said that they think unemployment this year will be like average 9%. Well, that's like 93% of people still working. So inside of the freelance marketplace is $1 trillion marketplace. So inside of that giant ball, even if it contracted some, is room for one little old you if you're willing to hustle. That was the attitude I took, and it was true. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And a lot of opportunities come out of times like these too. There's all sorts of, you can never count out
I could
any
tell
situation.
you a lot of writers are taking meetings, signing up new clients. If you think there's no work, that it's not true. Absolutely not. Companies are pivoting. Everything that's happening, whenever there's change, that all needs to be communicated, and that needs writers. So it's not such a bad time for us. Obviously, if you were all in on travel copywriting, you need to shift. But in general, in the broad overview, there's lots going on.
Yes, absolutely. So let's see. For first-time writers, what is a good way to sell yourself to an employer to hire you? I know you covered this a little bit, but do you have any additional things that people can do to sell themselves to employers?
Well, the first thing I want to say is we're not looking for employers. We are looking for clients. Mm-hmm. Freelance writers have multiple clients. We are not looking for a gig. If you only have one, you're really not freelance writing, and the IRS doesn't think you're freelance writing, and it wants to disallow all of your expenses that you want to write off because it thinks you're really a misclassified employee. So know that, you don't want offers to go sit in someone's office and do something 40 hours a week, and they're calling it freelance writing, because that's not cool. You're looking for people who let you do your own work in your own home, on your own hours, on your own equipment. That is part of the IRS's definition of freelancing. And what we say is partly based on what we see. We go look at the company or the publication, and then we put something together. I find it, there's a great law that there are like 1 zillion abandoned business blogs in the universe. Just like, so go look around. And they all kind of petered out a year ago, and they're just kind of sitting there, and it's sad. And that's your opportunity. It's like, hey, would you like to keep that thing going? Or you'll see press release caches that died a year ago or something. I like to look for missing pieces and then say, hey, could you use help with that thing? I mean, sometimes you won't find one, and you'll just say, hey, I see you do a lot of X or Y. Seems like you crank out the case studies all the time. Do you need help with that? And a case study, if you don't know, is just a customer story. It's almost like a newspaper article, like a magazine profile, except you're telling the story of why a customer chose a particular solution and how it worked out for them.
Yep, absolutely. There are plenty, and I've worked with companies who've had those abandoned blogs and things like that. And
And if
they
they
are
if the
hoping for someone to come around and say, hey, I can do that for you.
Yeah, and that's the big thing you need to understand about online job ads is like they're always just the tip of the iceberg and so much more is never advertised. And
Yes.
that's why you do proactive marketing is you're trying to locate those people who are just marketing managers hunched over their desk going, and like they're like, I don't know a writer. I don't know how I would find a good one. I know Upwork is terrible. I don't know what to do. I'm just going to try and write this myself again. And I know I'm not that good at it. You know, they're just in a spiral and
Yes.
they're not reaching out. And when you hit them, I mean, I could show you slides of like actual emails that my students have gotten back that are like, I'm so glad you contacted me. We are drowning. You know, can you take a meeting tomorrow? Like often you'll get
Hmm.
like, thank you so much for reaching out. And if their blog isn't abandoned, see if it has a free ebook or special report or anything for subscribers, because you can't believe how many don't. It'll blow your mind. And
Yes.
blogging is often a good entry level kind of pitch. You know, I think we've all read blogs. They're pretty conversational and eighth grade English kind of writing. And, you know, organize it into bullets and you're set. Write a strong headline that's interesting. You know, I think it's kind of the break-in job in freelance writing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Do you have time for two more questions? Would
I'm
that be all
good. I'm
right?
here for
Awesome.
whenever you need me.
Thank you. Okay, so the next one is, what have you written freelance? What have you written freelance before, but it's been several years? Is there a time limit for when your samples become too dated?
No, there isn't. There totally isn't. I've totally routinely sent out 12-year-old clips to people. No one cares. No one looks at the date and goes, "Oh, well, this was long ago." It doesn't happen. They just dive into reading it. They just want to see if you can write. If you
Mhm.
wrote it, I coach a million homemakers who took an 18-year break to raise their kids and now they're coming back in and they think their clips are too old and theirs aren't either.
There you go. Okay, so let's see. Oh, this is an interesting one. How do you feel about pushing back on a client when you know what they want won't work?
Mm. I make my case. I just, you know, I had this happen actually with Costco. They ran an article I wrote for their business services letter through the legal department, and it came back all sliced and diced. And I said, you know, I don't think this is going to achieve your goal now that it is like this, which your goal was to, you know, emotionally engage readers. And it was like a story of a woman whose car caught on fire while she was driving it and how Costco insurance helped her. And it was really fun to write. But yeah, they had totally run it through a meat grinder and they put it back the way it was. But the bottom line is, you know, the customer's always right. So I make my case and say, here's why I think this is a bad choice, just in a very professional way. And ultimately, you know, your paycheck is your motivation, like they say in acting.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's see. What are your suggestions for pitching to larger publications in your interest? For me, Garden and Gun, Bitter Southerner, etc., seem overwhelming to submit to a generic slush pile.
Yeah, you shouldn't ever submit to a generic slush file. You want to suss out the email of the editor and stay out of there. And there's only two ways to get into bigger publications. One is to keep writing for smaller publications and hoping they notice you and poach you. Which happens. That's how I got into Forbes, was they saw what I was writing for Entrepreneur and called me. It does happen. The other way is to write a great query. And, you know, the worst thing that happens when you pitch a big publication is they say no.
Mhm.
And you can pitch them again a month later and they like won't remember. They get like
That's going to be
100
my
pitches a
follow
week.
up.
They will not know it was the same person from that other one they didn't like. No. So, you know, you kind of have nothing to lose. But the other thing is to just think of the farm club for that. If your goal is Garden and Gun and that's at the top of a particular niche, what's down here? You know, I tell people to just go, like, if you have a small local paper that's only publishing once or twice a week now or something, oh my God, go ask them if you could go cover a city council meeting or something. They won't probably pay, but everyone needs help in regular daily journalism. And those clips are great. Those clips impress people that you have gone through an editorial gatekeeper and you've reported facts and you understand ethics, and they tend to be good clips. And
Mhm.
just think up from there. So it's like I wrote for the Business Journal in Seattle as a staffer, and I wrote as a freelancer for Seattle Business Magazine. And one day I went, could I write for Entrepreneur if I'm writing for Seattle Business? And they were like, oh yeah, just send us pitches, you know? And I was like I thought of them as so unapproachable, you know, for so long, but it's just in our heads. Just pitch them. If you have an amazing idea they need in their magazine, they're going to call you.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so we do have a couple questions. This is a kind of a good last question to wrap things up. A, do you cover grant writing in your courses? And then also just tell us about the Den opening up in July. Where do people register? Where do they get more information? And I can put links in the chat.
Yeah, it's just go to freelancewritersden.com and get on the waiting list. We will be telling those people, believe me. That's how you put your hand up and say, yeah, I'm really interested in this. Be sure to tell me what's going on. And then we will, and we'll send you some free stuff while you're waiting and stuff. You, I believe, can see the whole list of boot camps as a non-member. We kind of put the main page of it out of the firewall so that people can see the whole list of classes. We do not have one specifically on grant writing because it's a very tough space. Unless you have a track record of having gotten grants for big organizations. And the whole nonprofit sector is pretty challenging. It's like 90% of it is organizations with budgets under $1 million, and they are looking for a volunteer to help them write a grant. So it's tough, but the good resource on that is there's a Professional Grant Writers Association, and they will teach you about the ethics and, you know, how the good clients are for that real specific niche.
Excellent. All right. Well, I just put the links into the chat. What we're going to do is follow up with a recap email either tomorrow or over the weekend. So be on the lookout for that. It will have a link to the recording, so you'll be able to view the recording. A few people asked if they could share this recording with other folks. Absolutely. It'll be public. And it will also include links to Carol's, the Freelance Writers Den, Make a Living Writing, and also the pitch templates that you offered with the guide to pitching.
Yeah.
And the free ebook, the link to the ebook. So thank you.
I think I sent you one more link. I wrote a 8,000 word blog post.
Oh, yes.
That's 100. That's like the 100 most common questions about freelance writing. I didn't realize it was that long till my editor told me, and I was like, no wonder I'm tired. But it's sort of a manifesto primer I've been trying to put together for a long time. It's finally there. And yeah, I have 7 pitch templates for you for how to pitch in various situations. It's just a freebie handout. Enjoy, use it, grab it.
Thank you. Everyone loves samples and ideas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have lots of praise coming in. This was fantastic. Thank you for providing all the tips. There we go. Thank you for your time. So thank you, Carol, very much on behalf of the audience and FlexJobs. This was wonderful. Thank you very much.
Totally my pleasure. And yeah, hit my blog and ask questions on the comments if you have more.
All right. Thanks. Well, thanks everyone for being here, and have a great rest of the day. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.